This is a guide on how to duplicate miniature figures. There are a few considerations that inform the choices I make in terms of materials and methods. Obviously, with professional-grade materials, you can get similarly high-quality products. However, the investment into such materials can be somewhat daunting. For example, if one were to acquire a set of smooth-on epoxy silicone and epoxy resin, that is already a $64 investment. For this method, we'll be creating a two-part silicone mold and casting it with body filler. The silicone is strong, flexible, and very little, if anything, sticks to it. And the body filler is a strong, similarly flexible, cuttable, sandable epoxy that is both cheap, generally lacks bubbles, and is thick enough to be sandwiched between the two parts without spilling. For this, we will require 6 materials: cornstarch, popsicle sticks or any other rigid material, a type 1 acetoxy silicone, food coloring or cheap acrylic paint, any form of clay, and finally, for the actual casting, Bondo epoxy body filler. The mold must be formed in 2 separate stages. This is accomplished by first building a simple rigid frame like so. The frame is then filled with some form of clay. In this example, I am using polymer clay, but you can really use any kind of clay like Play-Doh or something from the dollar store. The clay is only a placeholder. Once the clay has been packed in, carefully try to evenly push the part in. Next, you want to create holes in the clay. These holes will form the negative of keyholes, which help the mold to lock together tightly and prevent the two halves from being put together the wrong way. You can use anything to do this. If you want to go one step beyond, you can carefully add a bit of clay to create an inverted key as well. Now that you have the piece ready, make the silicone. Making the silicone is easy, but it must be done properly to prevent a big mess. First, take a surface you can dispose of, like a sheet of paper or a disposable bowl. Next, dispense the appropriate amount of silicone you will need to fill one half of the mold. As a side note, as mentioned earlier, this must be type 1 acetoxy curing silicone, which can be identified by its powerful burning vinegar smell. This vinegar smell comes from acetic acid, which is the byproduct of the curing process. Neutral curing silicones, like these, will take many weeks to fully cure and are significantly weaker. I also advise you to do this in an open area with a fan and wear a facial mask soaked in water. These vinegar fumes can burn your eyes and nose. Add 4 to 5 drops of food coloring or a glob of acrylic paint and slowly mix it into the silicone. Next, add some cornstarch to the mix and begin to slowly mix it in. Using the cornstarch as a barrier between you and the silicone, begin carefully kneading it. The silicone will stick to anything very strongly. Once you feel it is completely mixed together and has a texture something like a soft dough, carefully pack in the mold. Push and prod at it to ensure it is completely filling the mold. Try your best to flatten off the top. Sadly, any excess silicone will probably go to waste as it will cure in about 20 minutes. After the silicone is cured, gently break open the frame and remove the clay. Gently remove the piece from the mold and clean the clay off, and then reinsert. You'll also want to fix the frame. Repeat the process of mixing the silicone and fill in the other half. Once the silicone has all cured, you should be able to gently peel the two halves apart. After some quick cleaning up, you now have your mold. For the epoxy, again wear a mask and ventilate as the fumes are pretty strong. Mix according to the instructions until you have a pink paste and carefully fill the two halves. Try your best to fill the entire mold and don't use more epoxy than is necessary, as any excess will form more flash and be harder to remove. Press the mold together and place a moderate weight on top. Wait approximately 20 minutes for the epoxy to cure and harden, and demold. You can use a sharp knife, clippers, or whatever you like to clean up the model.